Y'all get ready?
Yes, you get ready.
If you want the latest news in the streets, join us and tune in for the tea. Breaking news with integrity. So tell your friends and your family. It's the Lovelyti TV show, bringing you good tea and good vibes. It's the Lovelyti TV show. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Hey tea sippers, I hope you guys are doing good today. Make sure you guys have your teacups ready because this tea is what? Piping hot. So today we're going to go ahead and go kind of deep, okay? I want to take y'all back to 2006, and we're tracing a very specific, documented, yet very alarming pattern that has been building up with this franchise for almost 20 years that nobody seems to want to sit down and talk about. And what we're going to talk about today is the Real Housewives franchise and how it started and what it's turned into. How the machine that Bravo built around performance of wealth has quietly destroyed women, their finances, their freedom, and in some cases their entire life, and also how this has played into society in general. So we're going to talk about it all today. We're going to talk about Teresa Giudice, Erika Jane, Tom Girardi, Jen Shaw, and even Dr. Wendy Ofeso. She just had her case separated from her husband, and they're looking to have 2 separate trials with each one expected to run about 4 days. So I'm going to go ahead and break it all down to you guys. So let me take you back to March 21st, 2006. That is the date that the first episode of The Real Housewives of Orange County aired on Bravo. The show had been in development under the title Behind the Gates. The original concept came from a man named Scott Dunlap, who lived in Coto de Casa, a gated community in Southern California, and who wanted to do a documentary-style satire of his neighbors. He thought regular people outside the gates would find first world problems of wealthy suburban women not only funny but fascinating. And he was right. But before it could even air, Andy Cohen almost killed it. Cohen said in his book, Not All Diamonds and Rosé, the rough cuts sucked. I wanted it to go away. We were ready to kill the show. And when you watch season 1 of The Real Housewives of Orange County, not with everything that we know, the thing that stands out most is how genuine and ordinary these women were. We had Vicky Gunvalson, and she was running a real insurance company called Coto Insurance out of her office in Coto de Casa. That was her actual job. Her story was about work-life balance, a real marriage with real tension, and the genuine ambition that came from growing up in a working class. Her father owned a construction company, and he died of Alzheimer's when Vicky was in her 20s. She got her insurance license and built something of herself. That is a real story. Laura Peterson was a divorced mother working for Vicky and struggling financially after her ex-husband left her with almost nothing. Her son was sent to juvenile detention. She was dealing with that on camera with real vulnerability. Joe De La Rosa was 24 years old and the youngest cast member in franchise history, dealing with a boyfriend named Slade who wanted her to give up her independence and be a stay-at-home girlfriend before they were even engaged. Gina Keogh was a real estate agent worried about getting her son into a college baseball team. Kimberly Bryant was a mother dealing with her child's genetic risk of skin cancer and eventually moved her family to Chicago to reduce their sun exposure. These were real stakes, real problems with real people. There were no production lines. There were no brand deals. There was no Instagram. Bravo profits were $135 million in 2006. The show's first reunion was held in Vicky's backyard. There was no Andy Cohen. There were no diamonds, peaches, or apples. There was just a camera crew in a gated community and 5 women being themselves. Then the audience responded. The ratings started to climb, and Bravo figured out something very specific that the audience wanted. They did not actually want real. They wanted aspirational. They wanted fantasy. And they wanted women with big houses, bigger drama. And the moment Bravo figured that out, the entire architect of the franchise began to shift in a direction that nobody who watched the first season in Vicky's backyard could have predicted. By 2012, The Hollywood Reporter ran their now famous investigation into the franchise. The show had already expanded to 7 cities, and Bravo's profits had ballooned 122%. The franchise was being described internally by NBC Universal worth $500 million. By the time streaming revenue, international licensing, merch spinoffs, and advertising deals were factored into the current valuation, the franchise is estimated at over $1 billion. $1 billion built on the backs of women performing their lives on camera. And here's the part that everybody needs to understand. That same Hollywood Reporter investigation revealed something that should have sounded alarm bells way back then. A former cast member named Peggy Tanous from Real Housewives OC went on record and said, "We started meeting with producers to discuss storylines. I started getting anxiety thinking about all the forced drama that does happen on occasion." And producer Doug Ross admitted on record that the Real Housewives were asked to plan events, $50,000 children's birthday parties, group seances, charity galas, so that the camera had something to film. The show that started as a documentary about real life had become within 6 years a production where participants were co-writing a performance of wealth and drama on set that happened to be their actual lives. The women who wanted to stay on the show understood that very quickly performance was required. You had to look wealthy. You had to act wealthy whether the wealth was there or not. And this is where all of the drama and the negativity starts. Bravo never told these women what would happen to them if they tried to perform a level of wealth that their actual finances could not sustain. The show gave them the stage and the costume, but not the safety net. The audience never saw the bills. So now let's break down the full history, because I want y'all to understand that this pattern did not start with Wendy Osefo. This pattern goes back to the very beginning, okay? By the time the Real Housewives OC hit season 4, Lynn Curtin and her family were being served eviction notices on camera. Her daughter answered the door during filming. Lynn told producers that she had no idea that her family was in financial trouble.
Some guy just comes in with papers and says, "You've been served. This is your eviction notice." Yeah.
When I got the call from the girls' office, there's a mistake. Something's going on. This isn't right. Frank has been handling the finances. Whatever bills he was paying on, he said he paid on.
By the time she filed for divorce in 2013, she claimed to have $100 to her name. A woman who had been living in a gated community, performing a wealthy lifestyle on national television, had $100 to her name. Let that sink in, okay? During season 1 of The Real Housewives of New York, which aired in 2008, Bethenny Frankel was paid only $7,250 for her entire season on television. She stated that she put her life on camera and performed wealth and built a brand that Bravo would monetize for years. But
traditional Hollywood and actors don't respect us and never really have. The entertainment industry needs the circus clowns to come in and entertain the audience. They use your name, likeness, and content to the end of time. And usually the content is things that people regret and are forever embarrassed by. Sandoval Rules would be a good example of that. My divorce being exploited by later being really aired more heavily when it was happening, or NeNe Leakes' husband Greg dying, and then they really show those episodes a lot, because what they do is they go back and they really further capitalize by pumping episodes based on people's issues and deaths and addictions and things like that. And it goes on forever. And not only that, they monetize merchandise, they monetize YouTube clips, and the talent is building an intellectual property that they don't own. And they receive nothing from it.
This is what sets her apart from the other Real Housewives. She had a business sense. She turned that undercompensated money that she received, that $7,000, and she flipped it and used that money to start her Skinny Girl empire. And that Skinny Girl empire eventually sold for $100 million.
I owned the name Skinny Girl, but I was partners in that logo with my original partner. Beam wasn't interested in him. They wanted him to cash out, and I wanted him to cash out because I wanted to maintain that girl. I knew that I could use that girl in all these different ways.
But her $7,250 story is important because it tells you exactly what the entry price was for this machine when this franchise first started. These women did not have the power to negotiate. And as recently as 2023, Bethenny has launched what she's called a reality reckoning. And we've talked about this on this channel. She's been posting on social media that she still receives 0 residual payments despite Bravo restreaming all of her old episodes on Peacock, generating ongoing revenue from her likeness and her storyline. She said cast members across the franchise were being exploited and called for a minimum of $5,000 per episode, a 10% annual raise, and residuals for streaming.
Why isn't reality TV on strike? I got paid $7,250 for my first season of reality TV, and people are still watching those episodes. We've always been the losers, the I'm up here, you're down here to the actresses and actors. During the last writer's strike, we're providing all the entertainment, and that's when really the gold rush of reality TV started. So I myself have generated millions and millions of dollars in advertising and online impressions being on reality TV and have never made a single residual. So either I'm missing something or we're getting screwed too. People on the Hills and The Bachelor and Bachelorette get paid peanuts to do what they do, and people can still watch those episodes from years gone by. Anyone shooting a Bravo show should not be shooting until they get paid residuals for all the other episodes that they've ever done, or those episodes should be taken down.
And guess what? SAG-AFTRA backed her. And then NeNe Leakes, who herself was one of the highest paid cast members in the franchise history, she was paid $2.85 million per season. She commented directly on Bethenny's post and said, "Agreed. I have been saying this, but they will hear you better than me." Those 7 words tell the whole story. A black woman who helped build the franchise into $1 billion valuation had to tell the white woman that the same message that she's been saying for years will only land because of who's saying it. Basically saying the white man's ice is colder, in not so many words, okay? So make it make sense. This whole situation is just insane that these women, they get nothing once they're on these shows. And what's very interesting is that now, because Bethenny became, multimillionaire from the skinny girl empire, and she used Bravo to launch that, now they have all these new things in their contract. So what basically happened is this. So after Bethenny Frankel, was promoting her alcohol brand Skinny Girl on the show while still a cast member, at the time, Bravo didn't really have strong language in their contracts about any percentages of a business that were promoted on their platform. And Bethenny used the show as a marketing machine for her brand. And so viewers watched her talk about Skinny Girl margaritas. They saw the brand on television. It exploded in popularity. And so her Skinny Girl cocktail line ended up, basically just soaring. Okay? She was selling millions of cases.
I only drink one drink, and I call it the Skinny Girls Margarita. It's Patron Silver on the rocks, fresh lime juice, and a little splash of triple sec.
Me too, I guess. Do you hate those? It's a Skinny Girl Margarita. Okay.
And so in 2011, she ended up getting the deal where she sold it for $100 million, like I was just saying. Now, this is the key detail. Bravo felt the way because they didn't get a cut of that deal, and that Bethenny used their platform to promote it. So then what they ended up doing was creating this so-called 360 deal contract, which is used in entertainment. People usually think about it with, the music industry. But reality television also has one as well, especially after the whole Bethenny Frankel situation. So in the new updated contracts that Bravo, has for its participants, what they're saying now is that the network is allowed to take a percentage of any business or product that is promoted on their show. This includes things like beauty lines, alcohol brands, clothing, fashion collections, podcasts, books, hair care lines, skincare lines. So if a Real Housewife launches a wine line or a skincare line or like Kenya Moore hair care, and they use the show to promote it, Bravo is now entitled to a percentage of that revenue. So this is why you now see so many housewives launching businesses that are really integrated into the show itself. This is why you see, like I said, Kenya Moore's hair care, people's restaurants. So basically the Real Housewives are no longer just appearing on reality television. They're participating in a system where their personal brand and businesses are not only a storyline, but it's also tied into a larger business model where the network ends up profiting as well. And this all traces back to Bethenny Frankel's Skinny Girl deal and them feeling a way about it. Now let's talk about Sonja Morgan, because Sonja is one of the longest running examples of this franchise and what happens when performance of wealth completely overtakes reality. Sonja filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2010, claiming to be nearly $20 million in debt. So while she was sitting here with $20 million worth of debt, she was actively filming herself as a wealthy Manhattan socialite on The Real Housewives of New York. She had a townhome in the Upper East Side. She had these massive dinner parties. She also had interns. She had a whole presentation, and she owed $20 million. But yet and still, Bravo kept filming, Bravo kept airing her, and the audience kept watching. And as recently as May 2025, Sonja was banned from a high-end New York restaurant after skipping out on her $1,000 dinner bill, because she believed that her simply dining there was in exchange for a promotional post.
Shouldn't go out for dinner if she can't afford it. So I don't expect anybody to count my dinner. If they want to, that's their option. I would never expect it.
Does that happen a lot with you, housewives? Because somebody will sometimes I'll get a dessert or some drinks or whatever, but very rarely will someone pick up an entire tab. I mean,
for 5 people.
I would feel weird about it.
Has Sonja responded? Did she make a comment?
She paid the bill on Monday,
she paid
2 days later, but she's
okay.
been banned from the restaurant.
With a generous tip, was pointed out. I don't know if she said it or he said it.
You don't do that.
She paid the bill with a generous tip.
Well, that was what she needed to do, and then you never go back to that restaurant.
Max in New York. Hey, Max.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Hi.
This is Max Tucci calling.
Stop it!
Wow.
A Tucci restaurant?
I love that.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
All right, so talk to us, Max.
I want to come into your restaurant. I'm going to pay, but I want to come in. I'll be in New York in the first week of June.
And I will be there as well.
come
Same
with me,
time.
Shannon.
I'll
Come
be
with
there
me.
too.
Well, what about me? I feel left out.
Let's
I'm
talk to
debating a
Max.
new cocktail, the Sonja non grata.
Oh, I love it. I'm going to order that. 2 of them.
So can you tell us what happened, Max?
Yeah. So look, Sonja and I were neighbors in New York before, the house got foreclosed. And so when she first came to the restaurant in June, last year, I was very much neighborly. Come in, it's on me, literally on me. I pay my servers when there's, an event like that. So she came. After that, she thought she was always going to come for free. She's only been there once since this incident. Okay. So she has not comped meals, apostrophe S, whatever. There's never been meals. One meal was comped. She called me Saturday on my personal cell phone. She said, hi, I would love to go to Tucci. I have to go to Jack's birthday at Boom Boom Room, so I want to come by. My cousin Jack, first of all, it's not her cousin, it's her daughter's cousin, Jack Morgan. And so I said, great, how many people? She starts, 2 people. Okay, then maybe 3. I'm bringing J-Lo's hairdresser. I said, whatever, just how many people? 3. Okay, not a problem. We get her to the table. I specifically sent her a text message saying, I am out of town. It's Mother's Day. I'm with my mother in Florida, but I will send you something from me. Okay?
Oh.
So it was the evening was fine. Reports from inside, she already started a scene when she got there. Why? Because she told me 3 people. She shows up with 5. Now, Tucci, is, as the press is saying, a hot spot.
Yes, it is.
My family is going to be 100 years in hospitality.
I only have 1 minute, Max, unfortunately.
I'm going to wrap it up.
Okay.
So I'm going to wrap it up real quick. So she comes in, creates the scene, calls me at 11:30 and says, I'm a celebrity. I don't pay. Why did you give me a bill?
Oh, wow.
That same month, the HVAC company publicly claimed that she owed them $20,000 for completed work. 15 years of this franchise, and this pattern is literally the same thing. Yet Sonja is beloved because she's become an icon on the show. The machine absorbed her reality and turned it into a persona and kept collecting checks. Now let's get to the case where the performance of wealth crossed into federal crime territory, okay? And I want to start with Teresa Giudice. The Teresa Giudice case contained details that most people glossed over, and I think it's the most important fact in the entire story. Teresa and Joe Giudice were indicted on 39 counts of federal fraud in 2013. The charges included conspiracy to commit mail fraud, wire fraud, bank fraud, making false statements on loan applications, and bankruptcy fraud.
Real housewife Teresa Giudice and her husband were charged with fraud and tax evasion this week. The cast members of Bravo's The Real Housewives of New Jersey were indicted on 39 charges, including bankruptcy and bank fraud, making false statements on loan applications, and conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud. Husband Giuseppe, known as Joe, is also accused of failing to file tax returns between 2004 and 2008, illegally earning an income of $1 million. According to the indictment, the couple filed for bankruptcy protection in 2009.
The United States attorney at the time stated this: Everyone has an obligation to tell the truth when dealing with the courts, paying their taxes, applying for loans or mortgages. That's reality. Now that's the detail that gets buried. The fraud did not begin when Teresa joined Bravo. According to the federal indictments, the scheme ran from 2001 until 2011. Teresa applied for her first fraudulent mortgage loan in September of 2001 by submitting fake W-2s and fake pay stubs, claiming she was an executive assistant making the money that she was not making. She obtained a second fraudulent mortgage in July of 2005 by claiming she was a realtor making $15,000 a month. She was not employed at the time. Then in October 2009, after she was already a cast member on the Real Housewives of New Jersey, the show was already airing and Teresa and Joe filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And in those bankruptcy filings, they concealed the businesses that they owned, income from rental properties, and Teresa's own income from the television show. They concealed the income from Bravo itself. Her television salary was hidden from the bankruptcy court. They also concealed anticipated income from the upcoming second season of the show. They were already cast members, already filming, already getting paid by Bravo, and they lied to a federal bankruptcy judge, all the while the cameras were rolling. Teresa was sentenced to 15 months in federal prison. She reported to the Federal Correctional Institute in Danbury, Connecticut on January 5th, 2015.
A Real Housewife of New Jersey, Teresa Giudice, the reality TV star, has been sentenced to 15 months in prison for bankruptcy fraud and conspiracy. She and her husband Joe pleaded guilty back in March and admitted to hiding assets from creditors and submitting phony loan applications to get millions.
She worked as a prison cook, making 12 cents an hour, and her fellow inmates nicknamed her Hollywood. She was released in December 2015. After 7 months, Joe Giudice received 41 months and then was deported to Italy when he finished his sentence because he never became an American citizen despite living here for decades. In Bravo's response to all of this, they aired a 3-part series called Teresa Checks In, documenting her time behind bars. Her contract value reportedly increased significantly when she returned. The woman who committed federal fraud across a decade, who hid her Bravo salary from federal bankruptcy courts, who lied under oath, came back to the same network more valuable than when she left. In early 2025, Teresa and her current husband, Louis, were hit with new tax liens, totaling more than $3 million. During a live television interview that spring, she abruptly ended the conversation when the host asked her about the tax debt. That moment went viral.
How is it that a family doesn't pay their taxes for years?
What family are you talking about?
Your family. Was that what the fraud charges were?
Okay, I'm hanging up. Okay, let's just hang up. That's it.
Oh.
The pattern never stopped. It just became a show. So the interesting thing about Teresa is that she's been scheming and scamming, okay? Her and Joe have been doing this since the early 2000s, but Bravo didn't care. They didn't care to do a background check. They didn't care, if they were criminals. They wanted people who were willing to put their life on television and who were willing to flaunt opulence. That's all they were looking for. And the fact that she did time, and instead of firing her and distancing themselves, they basically propped her up even more. And now we see her and Louis are being hit with tax liens and all types of mess years later. So it seems like a leopard never truly changes their spots when it comes to Teresa, okay? So now let's talk about Erika Jayne and Tom Girardi, because this case is the most devastating in the entire franchise history in terms of actual human financial damage caused from them. And it's still currently unfolding right now. But at the time of this video that I'm recording this, okay, Tom Girardi was one of the most celebrated trial attorneys in California. He was the lawyer who worked against the Pacific Gas and Electric Company in the 1993 groundbreaking contamination case, which was partially the inspiration for the film Erin Brockovich. He had a reputation, a legacy, and a huge mansion, and everybody called him the Erin Brockovich lawyer, okay? He was married to Erika. Erika was a cocktail waitress in Beverly Hills. He funded her entire entertainment career from beginning. The dancers, the costumes, the music production, the albums, all of it. Her company, EJ Global, received payments from Tom's law firm, Girardi Keese, totaling over $25 million across 12 years. Federal prosecutors have confirmed that Girardi diverted money from his law firm's operating account directly into Erika's company. Over $14 million that came through American Express card issued directly to Erika that she used personally and signed off on. The luxury cars, the private jets, the jewelry, the exclusive clubs. Federal prosecutors listed that all of these things funded by the money that did not belong to Tom Girardi to spend because the money belonged to his clients. And this is the part that y'all need to clock. Among Tom's clients were settlement funds that were stolen from families of the 189 people who died in the Lion Air Flight 610, which crashed in October of 2018. The plane went down in the Java Sea near Jakarta moments after takeoff. 189 people died, and their families hired Tom Girardi to fight for them. He won a combined $12.55 million settlement from Boeing. And according to federal prosecutors, that money sat in his trust account and was not distributed to the families as required. While they waited for justice, while they grieved, and while they dealt with the aftermath of losing their loved ones, the money that was meant for them was allegedly being funneled towards a lifestyle on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Tom Girardi was convicted by a federal jury in Los Angeles in 2024 and was sentenced to 87 months in federal prison in June of 2025.
Tom Girardi, the estranged husband of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills star Erika Jayne, is headed to prison. A judge sentenced the 86-year-old disbarred lawyer to 7 years behind bars for leading a years-long fraud. Girardi convicted of embezzling more than $15 million from his clients, many of them suffering from serious injuries or accident. While her ex waited to learn his fate,
he is now 86 years old and serving a 7-year sentence. His son-in-law, David Lyra, pled guilty to criminal contempt for willfully failing to distribute the settlement funds. The firm's former CFO, Christopher Kamen, was sentenced to more than 5 years for wire fraud. And just 4 days ago, on March 4th, 2026, Girardi's former colleague, Keith Griffin, entered a guilty plea, admitting he failed to distribute $7.5 million to the Lion Air victims as ordered by the federal judge. So multiple people are in prison or in court over this money that belonged to grieving families. And Erika Jayne is still not done with her legal situation. The bankruptcy trustee is suing her personally for $25 million. They say that her company received Girardi's stolen client funds. Erika has maintained that she did not know where the money came from.
I would feel compassion for other people.
Why do you think I feel compassion? Because I haven't fought it out?
No. I think you don't have the compassion because you don't want the compassion to seem like you're guilty.
I'm not guilty.
I'm not saying you are, but if you do that, it might look like you are.
I'm not guilty. That's why I fight as hard as I do.
Her attorney said that she was an entertainer with a 12th grade education who trusted her husband's professional judgment. The trustee's attorney, Ronald Richard, responded by saying she was the beneficiary of every single one of these payments and gave nothing in return. And let's not forget, she also signed or authorized every charge on the American Express card, knowing she had no ability to pay for them herself. The settlement talks broke down completely in December 2025. Richard posted on Christmas Eve that panic had set in on Erika's side and that she had very little options. The trial has now been pushed to May 19, 2026. The judge said no further continuances will be granted. This is the final date, and even if the settlement is reached, the creditors, meaning Tom's actual victims, can oppose it in bankruptcy court if they do not believe it was fair to them. This is not over. And while all this plays out, guess what? Erika Jayne is currently filming on season 15 of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Bravo is still filming, still running the machine, and still making sure to get a paycheck out of all of this mess while the real victims are suffering. Now let's talk about Jen Shah, okay? Y'all know I really liked The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City when it first came out, but it was a very, very interesting cast. What was really interesting about Jen Shah is that she was of Hawaiian descent and she was married to a black Q dog, okay? He was a Q. They met in college. And so initially she was Mormon. And when the Mormon church wouldn't accept her husband because he's a black man, she converted to Islam for her husband. So this was very interesting. Okay? You had this interracial couple. She was the first Polynesian, Hawaiian, housewife. So that was very interesting. She had these 2 well-behaved, handsome sons. They were off in college doing their thing as well. And her husband was a former football player turned coach. So, just looking at Jen Shah's closet was goals. A lot of people looked at this relationship as goals too. She was a boy's mom. Her husband was a football player. He's a coach. She just lived this luxurious lifestyle. So Jen Shah quickly became a fan favorite. So she became a member of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. This was in 2020 during C19. And so we were all hooked. This was a fresh franchise. They weren't in the sun and fun. They were in the cold. They were luxurious. And, I liked a lot of these women. And so from the time she stepped on the show, you couldn't tell her anything. When I tell you she was performing wealth at a level that in retrospect, I've never seen on this show, okay? And I've literally watched every franchise. She had fur coats stacked from floor to ceiling. Like I said, her closet was immaculate, okay? She had multiple, not one, but multiple Rolls Royces, and then she had an entire entourage. That's what was crazy. She had a whole entourage called the Shah Squad, and basically they were her staff. They were there to do her makeup, her hair, dress her, and I'm just like, how is she, they're paying for an entire staff? Like, this is insane. So what's very interesting about it is that she called herself Shah Chic, and she operated as if she was running a global empire. That's what we all assumed. But what was actually funding her lifestyle was a telemarketing fraud operation that, according to the U.S. Department of Justice, she had been running since 2012. So once again, Bravo not doing background checks, not really vetting who these people are. So this was a scheme. The scheme generated and sold leads lists to vulnerable people, specifically the elderly, including people in financial distress, to other members of a fraud network, who would then contact these people and scam them out of their savings through fake business opportunities and bogus investment schemes. The DOJ stated in their charges that the scheme victimized thousands of people, and that these victims were objectified as leads to be bought and sold, not as human beings, as leads. Working class people, elderly people, people who could not afford to lose what they lost. In March of 2021, Homeland Security agents arrived to arrest Jen Shah. The entire Real Housewives of Salt Lake City cast was on a party bus together heading to a cast event when it happened. Jen ran. She fled the scene before agents could reach her, telling the cast members that her husband was in the hospital. The footage of the cast on that bus, and the cameras captured everything, became one of the most iconic real-time moments in the franchise history. So Andy was loving all of this just messy federal tea. So, per usual, Bravo kept filming. They gave Jen Shah an entire additional season of television to proclaim her innocence. She sold merchandise that said not guilty. Her tagline was, "The only thing I'm guilty of is being Shah-mazing." She said that on camera. We all watched it. That season was everything. The ratings were up there. And then in July of 2022, after this woman sat here and said that she was not guilty, she was Shah-mazing, this fool ends up pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud.
I am innocent. I did not do any of the things that have been alleged against me.
Real Housewife Jen Shah is in for a whole new reality. After spending more than a year proclaiming her innocence on TV for the world to see, today, that all changed.
The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City cast member accepted a plea deal with federal prosecutors.
The reality TV star leaving a New York courthouse this morning, captured by the DailyMail.com, hiding her face under a mask and sunglasses after suddenly pleading guilty to federal fraud charges and agreeing to pay back up to $15 million and faces up to 14 years in prison. At the beginning of 2021, Jen Shah's star appeared to be on the rise as a breakout star of Bravo's newest addition to the Real Housewives franchise, Salt Lake City.
I want it to be Shah-mazing. Yep. I want it to be shabulous.
The married mother of two was known for her flashy style and flaunting her life of luxury. Shah was arrested off camera and charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering, all linked to a nationwide telemarketing scheme that targeted hundreds of people across the country, many of them over age 55. The charges set off a massive media blitz. Shah is not the first housewife to face a hard time after being indicted on federal charges. Teresa Giudice from the New Jersey franchise famously served 11 months in prison. Shah did become the subject of a Hulu documentary from ABC News Studios, The Housewife and the Shah Shocker, which included interviews with investigators.
In any of our operations, we don't look for specific timing to do arrests. In the case of Jen Shah, she had a television crew that was following her on a regular basis, right? So it was not planned in any way.
What are you guys doing in there? There's a search warrant.
Our investigators, our special agents needed to do our jobs. And I'm happy to say they did it without incident, and she was taken into custody.
The charges stemmed from an investigation that had been ongoing for years. Investigators in New York say they had uncovered a huge telemarketing scheme. By 2021, it linked all the way to Jen Shah in Utah.
And Jen Shah was charged with helping to orchestrate this scheme where ordinary people, vulnerable people, often elderly people, would be tricked into giving up their life savings for products that telemarketers were telling them had value, but which Jen Shah now admitted really had none.
Initially, Shah pleaded not guilty.
The case against her was strong, prosecutors said. They had bank statements and they had cooperating witnesses, including Jen Shah's own personal assistant, Stuart Smith.
The only thing I'm guilty of is being Shah-mazing.
Despite the charges, Shah continued filming for the show even as she prepared her legal defense.
So we're really just at the very beginning of the case.
On the show, she would often proclaim her innocence of the charges against her to her castmates and her family.
I'm telling you, I knew nothing of this. I didn't do anything.
What I have been accused of is absolutely the complete opposite of anything I would ever do in my life.
Those proclamations continued after the show finished filming. At the reunion, Shah again defended herself against the idea of a plea deal.
The success rate of the New York State attorney is like 95%. Does that?
Because people take plea deals. I'm fighting this. I am innocent.
She's fighting it.
And I will fight for every person out there that can't fight for themselves because they don't have the resources or the means, so they don't fight.
And even as recently as last month, during an exclusive interview with Up and Adam on YouTube.
To me, this is the only option for me is to fight, is to show everybody out there that we're so quick to jump on the bandwagon and make assumptions.
With her trial set to begin in a week, this morning's guilty plea on one count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, a shocking twist.
Excuse me, guys. Pardon me.
The reality TV star seen leaving the courtroom in these photos from DailyMail.com looking somber in sunglasses.
What seems to have happened, she trusted her legal team, and they probably said the best case scenario is for you to plead guilty because we don't see this going to trial and you coming out of this the way that perhaps you thought you were going to come out of this.
In court today, Shah read from a prepared statement saying, in 2012 to March 2021 in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, I agreed with others to commit wire fraud. I knew this was wrong. I knew many people were harmed, and I'm so sorry.
And then in January 2023, she was sentenced to 6.5 years in federal prison. She was released in December of 2024 after approximately serving 34 months.
And former Real Housewives star, Salt Lake City star Jen Shah starts her federal prison sentence today. She's being processed in Bryan, Texas, which is where she and her lawyers wanted her to go. Shah was sentenced to 6.5 years for orchestrating a decade-long scheme that targeted the elderly and vulnerable. She was also ordered to pay more than $6 million in restitution to her victims.
Andy Cohen has confirmed that she's not returning to the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. As of her release, she still reportedly owes her own legal team over $124,000 in unpaid fees, and thousands of people that she helped to defraud have never had their money returned. And the crazy thing is, while her home was being raided by the feds, they found over 30 counterfeit luxury bags that people assume were worth, thousands of dollars. These bags were literally $50. So she was definitely fronting. She was trying to put on a lifestyle that she could not afford. So, while everybody thought she was that girl, a lot of, not only her bags were counterfeit, she also had a lot of counterfeit jewelry too. They're saying that she had knockoff Chanel, Gucci, Jimmy Choo, Fendi, fake imposter Chanel jewelry, Cartier, Louis Vuitton. So it was a mess. That's why I say everything that glitters is not gold. So now let's fast forward to what's happening right now in real time, okay? So let's talk about Dr. Wendy Osefo. And this is why I kind of wanted to make this video, because it's not just a Wendy Osefo situation. This is a franchise situation. It's something with this Bravo network. And this is what I'm breaking down to y'all, okay? So Dr. Wendy Osefo is a Johns Hopkins professor and a political commentator. She became a Real Housewives of Potomac cast member during season 5 in 2020. Again, this was around COVID. This was a fresh face. It was nice to see a Nigerian family, on reality television. She was educated. She led with her degrees. She was a mother of 3. She was a wife of Eddie Osefo, who was also an attorney. Wendy had 5 rings on her fingers. She had a PhD, and she was literally teaching a course at Wesleyan University called the Sociology of Reality TV. Race, colorism, and xenophobia. This was a course about the very world that she was participating in. This woman is literally teaching a course on the downfall of reality television, on the things that happen on reality television. So for her to even be on reality TV and then get caught up in the way that she did is extremely disappointing.
It's a course that you also developed.
Yes, I wrote it. I took the summer off after I resigned from my other university. I took the summer off and I was like, all right, let me travel a little bit. I traveled with my family. And then while I was traveling, I was like, it's not that I don't like teaching. It's just that I want to do it my way. So I wrote a course and it's titled The Sociology of Reality TV. And I was like, who best to talk about reality TV from an academic lens than me? So this course really examines the way reality TV is a reflection of our everyday lives. And it tackles some important subjects from racism to colorism to gender roles to sexuality. And I've had such an amazing time. The students have. I brought in some of my reality TV friends to be like guest speakers like each day that I teach. And I just love it. It's liberating for me.
So she was arrested the day before her arraignment. Her students were emailing her about assignments that were due while she was being booked at Westminster, Maryland. The professor, who was teaching a course on reality television and the effect on race and identity, was arrested on charges related to her behavior on reality television.
If you're going to test this professor, be prepared to fail.
On The Real Housewives of Potomac, Wendy Osefo is the fiery academic.
I quit grading, but I'm still passing judgments.
But this morning, the reality television star and her husband are preparing to defend themselves against fraud charges. The couple accused of faking a burglary at their Maryland home so they could collect insurance money.
This place is a constant reminder of all of the accomplishments my husband and I have.
Though the Osefos flaunt their wealth on TV and online, investigators say they're steeped in debt and reported to police they were robbed while on a trip to Jamaica last year, claiming they found their bedroom and both closets to be ransacked and several designer handbags and jewelry had been stolen. Authorities were immediately suspicious.
No evidence indicated that anyone attempted to enter the house.
Police say the Osefos claim thieves stole 80 items, including jewelry, clothing, and shoes valued at more than $200,000. But court records say some of those things had been returned for refunds, including a $1,500 Dior shirt and a $1,000 Gucci wallet. And prosecutors say a search of the Osefos' home turned up at least 15 items that appear to be the same ones claimed stolen during the alleged burglary. A gold diamond anniversary band, they say, Wendy Osefo later wore in a social media post.
Diamond wedding band that they observed in a social media post that is when they started realizing that this was likely a fabricated burglary.
Court records quoted an email from Edward Osefo seeming to ask his wife to pad their insurance claims, asking if there were additional high-value items we can add to this inventory listing, allegedly telling her, I'm trying to get the total to exceed $423,000, which is our policy maximum. Executive producer Andy Cohen said on his radio show he found out about the Osefos' arrest the same time as everyone else.
I'm really sad about this.
And, you know, Wendy is just, you know, I'm a Wendy fan. And she has been a great housewife and a great role model.
The authorities making clear Osefo's fame had nothing to do with the decision to bring charges.
So I don't care if she's a real housewife, fake housewife, or whatever she is, we would have handled it the same way regardless of who she was.
In a statement from their attorneys, Wendy and Edward Osefo said they look forward to their day in court and otherwise ask for privacy as they focus on their family and the legal process ahead. The Osefos have not yet entered a plea. They're due in a Maryland court next month. Though not everyone takes the Real Housewives seriously, the authorities are taking this case seriously. They say insurance fraud affects all of us because it means higher premiums for everybody.
The defendants were indicted by the grand jury for Carroll County in connection with Wendy Osefo. It was 7 counts of insurance fraud, 8 counts of conspiracy to commit insurance fraud.
Reality star Wendy Osefo concocted a story so far from reality that she's now facing a string of felony fraud charges.
You can't make this shit up, okay? While the students were trying to, you know, figure out their homework assignments and their grades, their professor was sitting in jail. So this is what the charges say. In April of 2024, while Wendy and Eddie were on vacation in Jamaica, they called the police to their Finksburg, Maryland home and reported a burglary. They said that the thieves had broken into their bedroom, closets, and stolen $450,000 worth of luxury goods, designer bags, jewelry, electronics, $500,000 worth of items allegedly taken by someone who broke in while they were out of the country. Deputies responded and found no signs of forced entry, no physical evidence of an intruder, no surveillance footage showing any break-in activity. According to a court filing in that case, Carroll County Sheriff's Office said it was a little suspicious from the very first response. Then the investigation started. Investigators found that several items that the Osefos claimed were stolen had already been returned to retail stores for refunds before the alleged burglary ever took place. A Dior shirt that cost $1,450 had been returned to the store in 2023. A Gucci belt worth $949 had been returned to the store in 2018, 6 years before the alleged burglary that somebody stole from her bedroom. Those items were already back at the store. Then in April 27th of 2024, 3 weeks after the alleged burglary, Wendy posted a photo on Instagram wearing a diamond gold anniversary ring that she had reported to the insurance company as stolen. It was on her finger on the internet for everyone to see. Investigators executed a search warrant and found at least 15 items in the couple's possession they already told the insurance company were gone. And in court documents, the prosecutors told the judge they found approximately 40 credit cards and debit cards in the couple's possessions, some in company names, others associated with 2 aliases. Eddie allegedly used the alias Eddie Hennessy. Wendy allegedly used Pam Oliver. Their defense team says the aliases were only for packages and deliveries for privacy purposes because they are public figures. Prosecutors say that the aliases were used as a deliberate attempt to mask their identity. Child, you can't make this shit up. Eddie Hennessy. Out of all the names, Eddie Hennessy? Really? You gonna use the name Eddie Hennessy? They'll never be able to spot the flaws in that one. Now here's some more detail that the Baltimore Banner confirmed from inside the courtroom that I think is the most important piece of this entire case. When prosecutors appeared before Judge Richard Titus to argue access to 8 years of Osefo's personal and business financial records, prosecutors said on record directly to the judge that Wendy and Eddie Osefo actually have very little money. In their words, very little money. A woman who's been on the Real Housewives of Potomac since season 5, who has a published academic career, who films her life in what looks like a beautiful home, who wears designer bags, jewelry, dresses, and all that stuff, okay? She's been performing a specific level of wealth for her audience for years, and prosecutors told the judge that she has very little money. They said the couple is burdened with what they call substantial debt. And the defense pushed back and said there's no evidence of financial distress, but the judge ruled in the favor of the state and allowed the subpoena for 8 years of financial records. Now, this is insane to me because Eddie's a lawyer, Wendy's a professor. You mean to tell me that neither one of these people had a Roth IRA all the money they've shown on this show, they didn't save anything for a rainy day. Even regular people have IRAs who put, a certain amount of money from their paycheck aside for when they retire. Because we all know we're not going to get no retirement money, child, okay? So we got to put our own money aside. So the fact that they don't even have an IRA or 401k, anything like that to tap into is insane. The court documents state that investigators obtained email correspondence between Eddie and Wendy in which Eddie allegedly asked Wendy if there's any additional high-value items we can add to this inventory listing, i.e. Chanel shoes. I'm trying to get the total to exceed $423,000, which is our policy maximum. That was what was stated in the email. So your husband is allegedly emailing you, asking you to inflate insurance claims to hit your policy maximum. If the email is authentic and it's used at trial, this is not accidental fraud. This is deliberate calculation. The charges are insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and making a false statement to law enforcement officers. With these combined charges, Eddie and Wendy are facing 33 criminal counts. If convicted on felony counts, they could face up to 15 years in prison.
If you're going to test this professor, be prepared to fail.
On The Real Housewives of Potomac, Wendy Osefo is the fiery academic.
I quit grading, but I'm still passing judgments.
But this morning, the reality television star and her husband are preparing to defend themselves against fraud charges. The couple accused of faking a burglary at their Maryland home so they could collect insurance money.
This place is a constant reminder of all of the accomplishments my husband and I have.
Though the Osefos flaunt their wealth on TV and online, investigators say they're steeped in debt and reported to police they were robbed while on a trip to Jamaica last year, claiming they found their bedroom and both closets to be ransacked and several designer handbags and jewelry had been stolen. Authorities were immediately suspicious.
No evidence indicated that anyone attempted to enter the house.
Police say the Osefos claim thieves stole 80 items, including jewelry, clothing, and shoes valued at more than $200,000. But court records say some of those things had been returned for refunds, including a $1,500 Dior shirt and a $1,000 Gucci wallet. And prosecutors say a search of the Osefos' home turned up at least 15 items that appear to be the same ones claimed stolen during the alleged burglary. A gold diamond anniversary band, they say, Wendy Osefo later wore in a social media post.
Diamond wedding band that they observed in a social media post that is when they started realizing that this was likely a fabricated burglary.
Court records quoted an email from Edward Osefo seeming to ask his wife to pad their insurance claims, asking if there were additional high-value items we can add to this inventory listing, allegedly telling her, I'm trying to get the total to exceed $423,000, which is our policy maximum. Executive producer Andy Cohen said on his radio show he found out about the Osefos' arrest the same time as everyone else.
I'm really sad about this. And, Wendy is just, I'm a Wendy fan. And she has been a great housewife and a great role model.
The authorities making clear Osefo's fame had nothing to do with the decision to bring charges.
So I don't care if she's a real housewife, fake housewife, or whatever she is, we would have handled it the same way regardless of who she was.
In a statement from their attorneys, Wendy and Edward Osefo said they look forward to their day in court and otherwise ask for privacy as they focus on their family and the legal process ahead.
And the fact that this man is a lawyer and you're breaking the law is insane to me. So the fact that he's pushing this dollar amount to maximize the policy lets you know that both of these people are very desperate to keep up appearances. Now, on March 4th, which was just 4 days ago, Wendy and Eddie appeared in Carroll County Circuit Court for their first pretrial hearing. Both waived what was called the Hicks Rule, their right to a speedy trial within 180 days of their first court appearance.
Eddie's attorney stated that Eddie is waiving his right to a speedy trial. In Maryland, there is a law that allows a defendant the right to have a trial within 180 days. His attorney is waiving his right to have that speedy trial, as they stated that they still have some motions to file, some subpoenas. There's research that they're doing, and so they're not prepared to present their case at this time.
Here's where things get very interesting, okay? Wendy did not initially want to waive her right to a speedy trial. Her team was pushing for the earliest available date, which court records show may be May 2026. Eddie is waiving his right, meaning his trial will be pushed further out. They will now be tried separately. Each trial is expected to last 4 days, with 1 day set aside for the defense.
Wendy's attorney, she did not waive Wendy's right to a speedy trial. So on Wendy's side, they are hoping to have the trial as soon as possible. The prosecution states that it will most likely be a 4-day jury trial. But as of now, there is no updated date of when that's going to happen. So the next status hearing is going to be on May 20th at 1 p.m. And from there, I guess we'll find out a trial date or if there'll be a plea.
Wendy addressed the arrest during the Real Housewives of Potomac Season 10 reunion, which aired in February of 2026. The footage, filmed approximately 1 week after the arrest, showed her and Eddie at their home, and Wendy said on camera, "Never in my wildest dreams did I think it would lead to us being taken away in handcuffs. It's so crazy. I feel like a bad dream." And then Eddie says, "God got us."
I was so scared.
They were maintaining their innocence, and their attorney called the arrest illegal and has filed motions to suppress evidence, claiming unlawful search and seizure. The legal fight is very much ongoing. So now let's go even deeper with this situation. There's definitely something happening at Bravo that connects all of these cases that very few people have connected clearly enough. In January of 2024, Carolyn Manzo, she was an original member of the Real Housewives of New Jersey. She filed a 57-page lawsuit against Bravo, NBC Universal, Peacock, and Warner Brothers Entertainment, and several production companies. The lawsuit alleges that during filming of an unaired season of the Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip in Morocco, Carolyn was sexually assaulted by fellow cast member Brandi Glanville. And the details in the lawsuit are explicit and deeply disturbing. But the part of the lawsuit that I need y'all to focus on is this. The lawsuit stated in its court filings that Bravo and its affiliated companies regularly ply the Real Housewives cast members with alcohol and cause them to become severely intoxicated, then direct, encourage, and or allow them to sexually harass other cast members because it's good for ratings. And separately, defendants even encourage Miss Glanville to become drunk on set so that she'd be more likely to commit outrageous harassing acts, thereby helping the defendant's ratings without regard to the rights and safety of those around her.
Caroline Manzo is suing Bravo over that alleged sexual assault from Brandi Glanville, TMZ is reporting. The alleged assault happened back in January 2023 when Caroline, Brandi, and other Real Housewives were filming Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip in Morocco. And according to this lawsuit that Caroline has filed, she is claiming that Brandi Glanville sexually harassed her at the behest of the producers. What's interesting is Caroline is not suing Brandi. I have the legal documents in front of me, and she is suing Bravo Media, Forest Productions, Warner Brothers Entertainment, NBC Universal, Shed Media, and Peacock.
Brandi Glanville, for her part, posted on social media in response to the lawsuit that the producers need to be held accountable and that the producers ask you to do something and then you get in trouble for it. Both women on opposite sides of the lawsuits are pointing the same finger at the machine.
Brandi Glanville has also been pretty vocal on Twitter, saying that she also says that the showrunners and producers were the ones that were putting her up to it. Brandi has made accusations, as well as Caroline is alleging in her lawsuit, that the producers encouraged the cast members to get excessively drunk.
That lawsuit is key to understanding everything else, because if a company is willing to allegedly get women drunk, specifically to manufacture drama for ratings without regard to their safety, then what else is this company willing to do? They were willing to sign a contract with Teresa Giudice while she was in the middle of a federal fraud investigation and film her going to prison and make a special about it. Prosecutors were building a wire fraud case against her, and they were willing to keep Erika Jayne on camera through every season of Tom Girardi's Fallout while the victims of lying heir awaited for accountability. And they're currently filming season 15 of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills with Erika Jayne as an active cast member, while her $25 million civil trial has been set for May 2026. And the judge said no further delays will be permitted. The machine does not stop filming for criminal charges. The machine does not stop filming for federal indictments. The machine does not stop filming for prison sentences. The machine films it all because it's all content at the end of the day. Now, I know that we mainly talked about the women and their crimes, and I did bring up Joe Giudice and Tom Girardi, but they were not the only men attached to the franchise who were arrested for schemes and frauds. Let's also not forget this, okay? In the Real Housewives of Atlanta, Apollo Nita, who was the ex-husband of Phaedra Parks, who was another Atlanta cast member, Apollo appeared to be living the high life. They had luxury cars, designer clothes, a beautiful home, but behind the scenes, much of that lifestyle was built on fraud. In 2014, Apollo was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to a conspiracy to commit mail fraud, wire fraud, and identity theft. Prosecutors said him and his associates created fake companies and bank accounts to steal people's identities and launder money. The scheme involved millions of dollars.
The husband of Phaedra Parks gets 8 years in federal prison for a fraud and identity theft scam that raked in an estimated $2.3 million. Apollo Nidus has entered a guilty plea.
I'm okay. I'm blessed. God is good to me and my family, and my attorney did an exceptional job. I believe in faith. I believe in God, and I think everything will be all right at the end of the day.
So while viewers were watching the glamorous lifestyle on television, the reality was that money funding it was coming from illegal activities. Now, granted, Phaedra had her own money. Phaedra's a lawyer. You know, she's a mortician. You know, Phaedra gets a bag. But you can't tell me that, you know, she wasn't benefiting from the fraud that was Apollo, okay? You can't tell me that she just had no idea what her husband was up to, okay? So now let's also talk about Peter Thomas. Now, Peter Thomas was married to Cynthia Bailey during the early years of the show. Peter portrayed himself as a businessman and a restaurateur. But over the years, his businesses were constantly plagued with financial issues. Multiple restaurants associated with him, including Bar One and other ventures, constantly faced lawsuits, unpaid debt, and tax problems, okay? In recent years, Peter was arrested on federal charges related to tax fraud and other financial issues connected to his business.
Former Real Housewives of Atlanta star Peter Thomas is heading to prison. The Charlotte restaurant owner and ex-husband of Cynthia Bailey was sentenced to up to 18 months for failing to pay $640,000 in employee taxes. Court records show Thomas used the money for personal expenses, including luxury shopping and real estate. Another $1.1 million in unpaid taxes from his Miami and Baltimore businesses adds to the case.
His legal trouble once again highlight a pattern that viewers have seen on this show. I remember about 15 years ago, there was a special. If you're from Atlanta, y'all remember this damn special back in the day, okay? The Fox 5 investigated NeNe and Greg Leaks, and they basically said that, you know, there was a lot of shady dealings. They weren't living the lifestyle that they were portraying on television. This was 15 years ago, and it seems like Fox News did better vetting these people than Bravo ever has. Let me go ahead and refresh y'all's memory in case y'all have never seen this clip from 15 years ago with them being under investigation. Check this out.
The reality TV series The Real Housewives of Atlanta is a hit, and one of its biggest stars is the bigger-than-life NeNe Leakes.
But the I-Team takes a look at what is real about their reality series and what isn't. Dana's here now. Dana?
Well, I'll tell you, a lot has been made, as you know, about the leaks and the status of their TV home. But the IT finds that's not the only financial woe the stars are battling.
The Real Housewives of Atlanta. If it doesn't make you money, I don't do it. It's a reality TV show that takes viewers into the homes and lives of some of Atlanta's well-to-do. People are intimidated by my success. It's about people who live in homes like this, wives with chefs, ladies who get massages whenever they want. And the biggest housewife personality to jump off of the screen is the tangy-tongued NeNe Leakes. I don't keep up with the Joneses. I am the Jones. On the Bravo Network series, NeNe Leakes lives here in this upscale Sugarloaf subdivision with her husband, Greg. Viewers ride along when the Leakes buy their teenage son this $42,000 truck. And your girl, I will be wearing diamonds as well. Where do NeNe and Greg Leakes get all of this money? The show's online bio says Greg Leakes is a successful real estate investor and business consultant. NeNe, whose real name is Lenithia, runs a charity. Fans love her for her what you see is what you get attitude. I don't like to pretend. But that's exactly what some people say the Leakes are doing. pretending. Real estate records show that NeNe and Greg Leaks don't own this luxury home. In fact, they don't even live here anymore. The reality is this, that Greg Leaks owes a lot of people a lot of money. Their TV home on the reality show was really a rental. And according to court records, a judge ordered their eviction on October 13th for not paying rent. Late today, a lawyer for the Leaks told us the court set aside the writ of possession and dismissed the case. But there's more money problems. A whopping $100,000 in tax liens against Mr. Leaks for unpaid taxes. Come on! There you go! Pat Nelson, who sued Greg Leaks, says the Leaks' real life doesn't match up to what you see on reality TV.
That's not real. What they are presenting is phony and just very misleading.
Pat Nelson claims Greg Leaks beefs up his TV resume. She says he really owns a property management company called Advantage Move.
Here's a screen, obviously a broken screen.
Ms. Nelson lives in Kentucky and signed a contract with Greg Leaks to rent and manage her Sugar Hill, Georgia rental home. The checks went to his wife, NeNe Leaks, who's listed as a company organizer.
I was instructed that the property management fees were not to be paid to the property management company. They had to be made out to Lovelyti Leaks.
Ms. Nelson says in a complaint filed with the Georgia Real Estate Commission that Mr. Leaks said he rented their home to a minister and his professor wife, a couple with great credit who could easily afford the $2,300 a month rent. But here's where the truth gets fuzzy again. Ms. Nelson claims the renters and the Leaks were actually friends.
Mr. Leaks, as it turned out, was a friend of the tenants, went to church with them.
Court records show her renters, in fact, did not have good credit and walked out on the lease, leaving the house with a lot of damage. Nelson took these photos showing water damage and ruined carpets.
Mice littered the floor.
The court records go on to say that human waste was on the patio and rotting food left in the house. The Leaks company, remember, was paid to keep an eye on the home and its renters.
It was deplorable. It was unhealthy, and yet Mr. Leaks said the house was left in pristine condition.
Pat Nelson says she had to hire a private investigator to find the former renters and to find the Leaks. In a negotiated settlement, the former renters agreed to pay her nearly $7,000 in damages. A judge ordered Mr. Leaks to pay more than $1,000 for breach of contract. She says Mr. Leaks still hasn't paid.
We knew when we walked out of there that Greg Leaks would never pay us, because of the type of person he was.
And again, she can't find him, so the I-Team went looking for Greg and NeNe Leaks.
My name's Dana Fowl. Over at the news?
We heard the Leaks were staying in this modest Duluth townhome. The young lady inside said the Leaks stay here sometimes with their son, but on this visit, they're not here.
Right now, they're in Miami, and they are not going to be back.
So we went back. Only this time, a man tells us that the Leaks do not live here. A Bravo TV spokeswoman wouldn't comment on our story, but did say this: the show is a reality show. Through a spokesman, NeNe and Greg Leaks say they never claim to be rich, only that they're living a comfortable lifestyle. But Mr. Leaks will have to find a new way for his company to make money. In June, the State Real Estate Commission said he needed a license to run his business. Leaks agreed to stop. For now, this chatty TV couple who brags about spending thousands of dollars for a high school graduation suit and is upfront on air,
Don't mess with the diva.
bang, is keeping their past to themselves.
To be continued.
Ms. Leaks runs a charity called Twisted Hearts Foundation. On the show, she collected nearly $20,000 for that group. We asked through her lawyer if she would tell us where that money went, but no one's gotten back to us on that yet. The Leaks said several times they would sit down and talk with the I-Team about these issues, but they haven't yet.
But things keep changing in this story. Something else happened today.
Yeah, just late this afternoon, a writ of possession was dismissed. That is according to court documents. Why all of a sudden? Well, we called the property manager of that house, and he said because there was a trade-off. Mr. Leaks, he said, agreed to pay the back rent, so they dropped the writ of possession.
But he did get the money in hand.
He says they have an agreement.
Oh, okay. All right. Dana, thanks.
Let's see where that money gets paid. Dana, thanks.
All right, so you guys just watched that clip. Like I stated, the scheming, the scamming, the fronting, the stunting has been going on for years on this franchise. Financial instability behind the scenes while still trying to maintain the image of success. And it's important because millions of viewers are watching these people's lifestyle and thinking that it's normal or it's obtainable. We saw luxury trips, expensive homes, flashy spending, but what we didn't see or fully understand was how fragile and fraudulent a lot of that wealth was. So you have regular people who now have internalized that and they're trying to emulate that. So let's talk about the cultural impact of the Real Housewives. Okay, from Atlanta to Salt Lake to Beverly Hills to New York to Miami. There's a cultural impact. While they were entertaining, they also helped to shape a mindset that influenced regular people in some very negative ways, especially when it comes to money and lifestyle. For years, viewers watched these women host lavish parties, take lavish vacations, throw over-the-top baby showers, plan extravagant birthday celebrations for their kids on television, that looked really glamorous. But what many people didn't realize is that reality TV is just not life. So as social media grew, we started seeing regular people trying to emulate what they saw on these shows. Suddenly, everybody needed a massive gender reveal, elaborate baby showers, and ridiculously expensive kids' birthday parties that cost thousands of dollars for children who aren't even going to remember that. Most people do not remember their first birthday. All they remember is looking back at pictures, okay?
I said, I want something big. I want something that says I'm here. Beyonce.
The pressure didn't stop there though, right? Then you started seeing girls' trips becoming a really big thing. And it was less about genuine friendships and more about aesthetics for social media. People were booking luxury vacations to Dubai and Egypt and Bali. Yet, they couldn't afford these trips. They were literally financing these trips through sites like Klarna, Afterpay, and putting things on credit cards just to post beautiful photos online. And then when the money ran out, the fallout would play out publicly. Friendships would fall out over unpaid bills, arguments, messy dramas. We've all seen the stories on TikTok.
The reason why y'all fall out with these people on these girl trips or on these trips in general is because a lot of these people are not your friend. Sorry to tell you, okay? And sometimes we just have to be rooted in reality. A lot of y'all be hooking up with people and wanting to be friends with people because of aesthetic. And it's not actually rooted in anything genuine or a shared interest.
The girls' trip to friendship fallout pipeline we see on a quarterly basis, and we're definitely going to see an uptick of after spring break and definitely over summer, can be summed up to three things: lack of communication, lack of respect, and money.
And don't get me started about the folks who would crash out at birthday dinners, where people would have these massive birthday dinners at these high-end restaurants, and then they would expect everybody to split the bill. Because the bill would come and be $1,000, and the person who's being responsible, who ordered just a salad that maybe cost $20, is now being forced to pay several $100s for, meals that they didn't eat.
Look at what all they got. They talking about splitting the bill. I'm only paying for what's on the check. I'm not splitting the bill.
Come together.
You got lamb chop. You got steak.
You really just should have paid for all of our food.
I'm not paying for everybody's food.
And so that would cause a lot of tension, and we would see that play out on social media. So all of this shows a deep cultural shift. It shows that shows like The Real Housewives normalize the idea that appearance matters more than financial stability. They helped to create a culture where living above your means was not only accepted, but it was glamorized. Another example of wealth on reality television that can be very different from reality is the behind-the-scenes situation involving Kim Zolciak Biermann and her husband Kroy Biermann. For years, Kim presented a lifestyle on The Real Housewives of Atlanta and Don't Be Tardy that looked incredibly lavish. Viewers saw massive mansions, luxury cars, designer clothes, and constant spending. The show portrayed them as a wealthy family living comfortably off of Kroy's NFL career and her TV income. But behind the scenes, things were apparently very different. And over the past few years, reports began surfacing of serious financial problems, tax liens, unpaid bills, lawsuits, lawsuits and even foreclosures. Their situation became even more public during their messy divorce filings. At one point during the battle, the police, were called to the house and Corey went off and he stated that there was no money left, that the couple were drowning in debt, and that basically he couldn't take it anymore.
Come talk to me. Ma'am, stay right there. What's going on tonight?
We're just having an argument.
About what?
About our fucking life.
Okay, what happened?
It's our life. It's destroyed.
Okay, what started the argument?
Her inability to fucking solve problems.
Okay.
Or address them or do anything.
Come over here.
Why?
Because I want to talk to you away from her. I don't want her to start screaming at you and have a whole argument.
It's nothing but an act. It's all a bunch of bullshit.
What is?
Everything she does.
Okay, what did she do tonight?
Everything, dude. I can't. I'm not going to do this because this right here does nothing but fuel her bullshit. I'm not doing this. This is narcissistic behavior. I'm not doing this.
I'm just trying to figure out what the
There's nothing to do. You shouldn't even be here. Who called you?
Your kids.
Who? What kid?
You have kids? I don't know. Whoever's in the house.
Yeah, we've been outside this whole time.
What was the argument about?
Our life. Our life.
Okay,
and it's fucking destroyed.
Why is it getting so heated?
Because our life is destroyed. What don't you understand? There's no money. There's no house. We're getting divorced one day and we're not the next.
Okay.
She's fucking other men. What do you want?
Just calm down.
Calm down, but I don't have a fucking life.
They had tens of millions of dollars in massive taxes and other liabilities piling up. Another thing that people found crazy is that Ariana Beardman, who is Kim Zolciak's daughter, she was on her own reality TV show that aired this past summer. It was a Bravo reality show called Next Gen NYC. And during her confessional, she basically slammed her mom, Kim Zolciak, for basically taking all of her money that was supposed to be set aside for her while filming on the Real Housewives of Atlanta and the TV spinoff Don't Be Tardy, which was based on the children. That is why she got the show. It was based on her husband, and their 6 kids. Ariana basically said that there's no money. None of the kids got any money, and they were being filmed on that show for years.
Unfortunately, my parents took my money.
As for how much money Kim and Kroy supposedly took from the 23-year-old during their breakup, Ariana says this.
Can't say exactly what they used it on because I just found out that it was gone 2 years ago. I don't even know how much money I made over the time period. Nobody was honest. There was no transparency. And I have no idea where it actually went.
Ariana goes on to share how her parents' financial issues have put a strain on her relationship with boyfriend Hudson McCleroy.
The thing that we do honestly struggle with sometimes is when my mom does call me and ask me for money now.
That's regular.
But lucky for Ariana, she's dealing with some rich guy whose parents own Zaxby's restaurants all over the country. So her boyfriend is rich, and Kim is still asking Ariana for money. This just goes to show you the smoke and mirrors that go into the Real Housewives franchise. And in many ways, it conditioned a generation of young people to believe that wealth is the image that you portray and you project rather than financial discipline that you practice. And that's the dangers of shows like the Real Housewives. And that's what I want to connect back to the very beginning of this conversation. I want to tie it all together because Bravo's profits were initially $135 million in 2006, the year of the show's premiere. By 2012, those profits had doubled to over $300 million. The franchise today is estimated at $1 billion. And what fueled that growth? The performance of wealth, the appearance of luxury, the fantasy that was being sold every week to millions of viewers who were going to malls and going to social media looking at these women and internalizing a message about what success looked like and what you owe the world in terms of presentation. The women who were performing that fantasy were doing it under gigantic financial pressure. With no union, no minimum wage, no residuals, no protection from a network. A study analyzing the franchise found that the show promotes what researchers like to call bourgeois values. that perpetuate insecurities in people who are not wealthy and unable to keep up with the lifestyles displayed. The study found that the show depicts the idea that wealth is life's ultimate goal and that affluence is void of problems. This portrayal causes viewers to develop a distorted relationship to money, to feel that that level of lifestyle that they are seeing is obtainable and that luxury is normal, and that the appropriate response to financial pressure is to perform your way through it rather than to address it, because that is what this model shows. Performance over reality every single time. Lynn Curtin's family got an eviction notice on camera and kept filming. Sonja Morgan was $20 million in debt and kept filming. Teresa Giudice went to federal prison and came back to a higher contract. The show does not model financial accountability. It models resilience through performance, and when you model that long enough, to enough people, some of those people begin to believe that the performance is a thing, and as long as you look the part, the underlying realities can wait. So it's not just the cast members' bank accounts, it's also the audience that's affected. And every woman who stretched her budget to buy a designer bag that she couldn't really afford because she wanted to feel like she belonged to a world that she was watching on television. It isn't every person who stayed in a financial situation that they should have left because performing the image of success felt more important than addressing the actual numbers. The franchise did not create financial anxiety in American women from scratch, but it absolutely supercharged it and put it in HD with cast taglines, diamond logos, and broadcasted it to millions of people every Thursday for 19 years. And the people who made the most money from it all were not the cast members, it was the network. So my only question is this: who's next? Because I don't see the schemes and scams ending anytime soon. So tea sippers, I leave the conversation up to you guys. Let me know what you guys think about this entire situation. When you look at how this franchise started in 2006 with Lori Peterson working for Vicky, because she genuinely needed the money and couldn't even afford a hotel room on the work trip, and compared to where we are now with Wendy Ofeso facing 33 criminal counts and Erika Jane facing a $25 million trial that's set to start in May, while Bravo is still filming both of these franchises, do you think that the network has any responsibility for the environment that it created? So I really look forward to hearing y'all's comments down below. I want to know what you guys think about this entire video. Please feel free to share the video. Make sure you guys like the video. And I'll talk to y'all later. Deuces.
Want the latest news in the streets? Join us and tune in for the tea. Breaking news with integrity. So tell your friends and your family. It's the Lovelyti TV show. Bringing you good tea and good vibes. It's the Lovelyti TV show. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe.